The Rugby League Hour, brought to you by MicroBio Solutions Limited, makers of Effluix, the new way to clean up dairy effluent and wastewater while increasing the fertiliser value of your irrigation in one easy step. Visit microbio.co.nz for more.
Strong, powerful, try!
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to it. My name is Martin Devlin.
Good afternoon, and I'm Tony Kemp.
This is the Rugby League Hour, and the way that it rolls, we have a weekend roundup where we look at all the results from round 15. We go up the wires, a special segment dedicated to the Warriors and that performance against the Melbourne Storm. He's a legend. Today, we welcome Richie Blackmore onto the program. We go head-to-head, hand out the Effluix Cleanup Award, and TK does his top 5. We begin the show the same way every week, which is called 6 Again, and it's 6 quick questions. And once again, they're all about the Warriors. Are Melbourne, on the evidence of that performance, the best side in the competition right now?
Sitting top of the table.
Did the Warriors deserve to win that game?
No.
Did the referee cost the Warriors that game?
What a load of BS.
Did the 2 yellow cards cost the Warriors that game?
Wingers, Marty, wingers.
Was Alicia, and I hope I pronounced that right, Katoa, that much of a beast when he was here at the Warriors?
Well, should we get Craig Bellamy on? He obviously saw it.
How the hell did we let him go? What the hell went wrong? Did the SJ/TMM67 combo work?
No, Marty. I don't think it did, and I think as long as they stick with that, it's going to be probably not a top 8 season for them.
Well, let's talk about how it can work better when we go up the wires. Twice now, both within the last 6 weeks, the Warriors have shipped 38 points, round 10 versus the Roosters, round 15 versus the Storm. Is there a defensive problem?
I thought the Cowboys had an issue.
The Weekend Roundup.
Well, that match certainly probably illustrated that the Cowboys were still a little origin hung over weekend before this one. Sharks, Dolphins. What a game this was. Dolphins up 22-0. Sharks coming back 24-22. Dolphins win 30-28.
The real deal.
You think?
The real deal. You got to give them up against the top of the table. You know, they're sitting there in fourth, and they do the Sharks, mate. It's unbelievable at home.
Cowboys beaten the Raiders and did it easy, 34-16.
Yeah, Ricky's lost the plot again, isn't he? The Cowboys, I think they'll upset a few teams.
Rabbits versus Broncos.
On a roll.
West Tigers getting up over the Titans.
Did anyone pick that?
Storm against the Warriors, 38-24.
The scoreline is a bit worrying.
Roosters, again, powerful against the Eels, but you look at their last 6 or 7 results and they're so topsy-turvy.
Yeah, they are. But I think along with Penrith and Melbourne, the Roosters are probably the scariest side to look out for.
Sea Eagles over the Dragons. We both watched that yesterday.
Good game.
And also the Panthers just doing what they do against the Knights.
Without Nathan Cleary.
Yeah, again.
The Weekend Roundup.
Table looking like this at the moment. Melbourne Storm top at 24 points, and then you've got the Panthers and the Sharks both on 22. Dolphins, as you say, Tony, are on 20. They're locked into 4th there. Roosters, Bulldogs, Raiders all on 18. And in the 8th place side is Manly. They're on 17. You got 3 on 16. That's the Broncos, Cowboys, Dragons, and then you come back to the Warriors. Let's start with the Dolphins then. Every week I question this as to whether or not they have the credentials and whether or not an asterisk should be put beside them. Well, you know, you're sitting there now after 13 games. They've won 8, lost 5. And as you said, they continue to win these games. Their sense and sensibility would suggest that they're not that good a side that they should.
Yeah, look, the Bromwich boys, I think when you look at it, Kaufusi, Fido, they've got some senior players there that are playing some pretty good football this year and used to winning, been in winning sides. So that game for me was really surprising that they could actually travel and win like that. There's plenty of points, but you need. I remember an old coach of mine saying you need speed in your side if you're ever going to be a real threat. And with Fido at the back, and when that try we saw. Oh,
that was magnificent, wasn't it? I mean, is there a finer side? I love seeing Ed O'Carr like that. And I want to ask you, this about the Warriors, about just lacking that express pace. That guy, I counted 6 or 7 defenders, but it was how he beat the fullback, because the fullback had him on the angle. He stops, they look at each other, and then he just takes off again.
So speed confuses defenders, doesn't it? Because if they're heading in one direction, you've got to go to 100 miles to catch them, and they change direction. You've got no chance of stopping yourself to get that attacking player, especially he's got speed. And that's exactly what the Hammer did. He changed angles a couple of times. He went back 8 metres to start. I think it was at the 98-metre mark before he went on that run through the middle of the park and then burned them off at the end. He even stopped the fullback and then kept going like you said.
Yeah,
so
brilliant.
I don't think there's a better sight when you're watching players run like that. There's a few...
Unless you're chasing them.
Well, yeah, that's not a nice feeling either. But there's a few guys in the comp that have speed to burn, and it's
well. Let's actually go back to the Monday
teams.
because we saw the same thing, didn't we? When the Doggies took out the Eels, and we saw their fullback do the same thing, lined up the centre twice, but just absolutely burnt him.
The interesting part about this that came out this week is that on the weekend after that game is that Trent Barrett is in the number one candidate for that role after that decision to leave Dejan Arce out there in that left edge when they had that game sort of in the making and get it won.
They had a man up after 54 minutes and they had plenty of chances with the ball. This was last Monday we're talking about, people. Yep,
they did, and Mitchell Moses couldn't ice it, which is really surprising. Got picked in the New South Wales team because the first game was good, but the last two have been pretty scratchy. But that Dejan Arce, leave him out there in that left centre so that he can be attacked by arguably one of the best in the comp in Crichton, and stopping him before he had to get going and then getting burnt on the outside like you did was probably a really, in my books, an error of judgment by
So
Barrett.
It said more about the coach than it does about the player because the player didn't have the pace.
Been there.
Because you could see Crichton talking to his other guys, couldn't he, and saying, we're going again on this, we're going again on this.
We're going to get him. We got him the first time. We'll just set it up exactly the same and we'll get him the second time. And the worst thing about that, Marty, is everyone saw them having a conference and setting it up except the coach.
Yeah. Well, that was last Monday. Let's talk back to the Dolphins and Cronulla. So Cronulla come back from 22 down, 22-0. They come back 24. So that's 4 tries you've got to score. Then they can't ice that game.
And, there's talk about Nico Hines getting this kick to take the game into extra time. So time's done. He's sitting there on his favoured right foot on the right side of the pitch and he can't ice that kick. And they're talking about pressure getting to him. And I've talked about this before Origin was made was, what's going to be interesting between now and the end of the season is how does Nico Hines take this news of not being picked in the New South Wales side on the back of losing the first game, can't ice that game, there against the Dolphins and then gets dropped it's been a pretty awful 2 weeks for him. And now he's got to come out, he's got to try and keep Cronulla in that top 8. So personally, I actually think he's going to struggle a bit. I think mentally he'll struggle. And that's unfortunate.
Well, the only thing Cronulla can do is, and they were saying this, is wrap themselves around them, go back to the club and concentrate on playing really well for your club. What else can you do under the circumstances?
Well, he's got no choice. I doubt whether even if they do lose
them in the top bloody 3.
Even if they do win the second game, New South Wales, I don't think they'll go back to Nico Hines in that last game. I think you're dead right. He has to concentrate on keeping them in the top 4. And that's the difference between the top 4 and the rest of the comp now. Is the top 4 starting to split the rest of them.
Was that win over the Titans enough for Benji to keep his job into next season?
Well, I think if you're reading between the lines with what Shane Richardson is saying, in and around that, there's too much of the media trying to play out the West Tigers rosters and shape of the season to come, that he's not giving it any salt. You know what I mean? He's just letting it stagnate. And I think with that in mind, that you've got the boss saying that Benji probably has next year sewn up. But
they need to come out and say it, don't they?
Well,
I mean, when you lose 9 in a row as a coach, every other coach would be looking over their shoulder. Just come out and give them the confidence and say, look, forget all this bollocks, mate. He's our guy. We're going to keep him until next year, and then we'll see.
Well, you could say that about the whole comp, couldn't you? You know what I mean? Like you could say that from at least from 8 to 17 now, that any one of those coaches would be, Aidan O'Brien at Newcastle went through the same thing last year. He's sitting in the same seat right now as was this time last year. Well, look at Andrew Webster. He was, just about
Coach
to get ready to
go
on that role. So you can say that about a number of the coaches here. I just think with Benji, first-year coach, hasn't really had a lot of experience. You don't probably throw him to the wolves. You probably Richo's probably looking at maybe putting other people around him to continue his growth. But mate, you never say never when you're a coach of the NRL. You're just one game away from being sacked. Leichhardt
looked fantastic, didn't they? And the way those fans celebrated it, they thought they'd won something. Well, they had. They'd won their 3rd game of the year. Lock, we need some stats from you here. Can Brisbane, without Reynolds and Walsh, but it's without Reynolds is the key, isn't it? Can they make the top 4 again? They've slipped out of the 8. And you've got some stats there about wins and losses, Lachlan, with
clutching.
With Reynolds, right? With and without.
Look, to be fair, Kempy's right, we are clutching. Prior to the injury spell that is going through right now, Brisbane were, I don't know if it's exactly this, it's either 6-3 or 6-4 since Adam Reynolds signed. Now, there's an asterisk, the asterisk being that those were 2 or 3 little spells of injury, not a long-term one. And since then, I'll have to run the numbers, so you have to give me about 30 seconds.
Well, the thing with that, you have to add Walsh to it. And when you've got Reece Walsh going down and Adam Reynolds going down, a heap of opportunity is taken off that Brisbane side. And not only that, is that they're coming up against teams in a competition that are so close together. If you're off an inch like the Broncos have been over the last sort of 3 weeks, you're going to lose if you don't have your top players going there. The difference here is Penrith. So, when you're saying Penrith can continue to stay in that top 2 without Nathan Cleary, you then say, well, what happens when he comes back?
Shouldn't the Broncos have more depth than this? Yes. Yeah. The answer is yes. You're a bloody big club that makes grand finals, mate.
No, hold up. There's only 2 clubs, just quickly. Now, since his injury, he got injured in the Roosters game. We're 2-4 if you include the Roosters game, so it's not looking good. Yes, but I think there's only 2 clubs in the comp that can stand up and say we have the depth to deal with injuries to our most important player. And Brisbane's most important player is Adam Reynolds. The only 2 clubs are Penrith and Melbourne. Melbourne don't have Cam Munster and they don't have Ryan Pappenhausen, but both clubs have always been able, or at least in the last 3 or 4 years, to retool the team when they're missing those players. I don't think there's any other club in the comp that if they're missing their most important player and their biggest game breaker can actually still go on a run and make the top 4.
The Warriors did, mate. When Sean was out, they got 3 in a row. Who are the 2 teams with the best winning streaks right now in the NRL? And that's 1-3 on the trot.
Souths.
R1.
And Penrith.
Doggies.
The Doggies.
No one's sleeping on them no more, right?
Nah.
Well, because we were talking about left edge, now they've got their right edge, right?
Yeah, and we said that if there was going to be a dog fight to try and make it the 8, it would be the Doggies trying to fight to stay there. And as we saw on the weekend against Parramatta,
last Monday, yeah,
they did that. And unfortunately for the Warriors, they play them twice. So, I had a look at the run home. It could quite easily go on a roll. I think, yeah. You look at it and you go, well, I'm not really frightened from the run home. But what I am worried about is there's a few teams in there that are fighting for an 8 spot.
And we get them. All right, Souths, this is their 3rd win in a row, and you've been saying to everybody, watch them, they're on a run. But, Tony, they're 4-9. Can they do a Newcastle from last year and make the 8? Because they're going to have to do another 7 or 8 wins in a row here.
I think the only thing that will throw that off is Latrell Mitchell making the New South Wales team. So if Latrell can come back after a New South Wales game and continue that role and that form that he's in, I think they can maybe sneak into the 8. But if he comes back and they need to rest him and he's tired and he isn't out there influencing the game like he can do, I don't think the Rabbitohs will keep that winning streak up. Mate, if anyone was going to go on a run back there at the beginning of the year and you're saying, look, are the Rabbits going to be in the 8? Everyone would go, yeah, with that roster. But now you're talking Damien Cook, they reckon signed to go elsewhere. I thought Cody Walker's probably been the best 5'8" in the last 3 weeks and unlucky to miss out New South Wales. And, of course, Latrell Mitchell plays himself back into the New South Wales side.
Cowboys, before we get on to the Warriors then, and again, I mean, this is such a hard team to pick. They lose 5 in a row, win 5 in a row, they lose 3 in a row, out of Origin, they get absolutely smoked by the Warriors, then they come back, and Canberra's not an easy place to play, and the Raiders are a good team, and they've been hot and cold, of course. But are the Cowboys now legit again?
Well, they're the team that has influenced the most by Origin, aren't they? Because they got, I think, 6 players.
6 players, yeah.
That come out of it. So, imagine, Marty, like those guys, most of them playing for Queensland, come back out and then they got to back up again and try and put in that type of effort. I think the Origin isn't doing them any favours, but they've got a decent side. When you say we've got 6 Origin players in our team, they should be a lot higher on the board than that.
Uh-huh. Warriors chat, ladies and gentlemen.
Moan. I'm moaning
sick
all
of
the
it.
time.
Oh, it's Monday. I got to moan on, all right. Warriors, damn. So frustrating. Rocket start, 14-0 up after 15 minutes. But from that point on, the Storm outscored us 38-10. 38-10. That says everything. They were clinical, they were ruthless, and we weren't. We were erratic, ill-disciplined. That lack of the same ruthlessness, the serious pragmatic professionalism needed to defeat teams like Melbourne, that is so costly. Once they stopped making mistakes and giving the ball away, they showed exactly why they're the best team in the comp right now. The Warriors are close, but there's still a gap. A big, obvious gap called attitude. It's about having a winning mindset and doing everything possible to win. And that's the lesson Melbourne dealt. The yellow cards were so unnecessary, cost us dearly. And that is what is so frustrating. At 18-20 down, just after halftime, still well in it. With Montoya and Dallin off, it's game over. Hard enough to beat a side like Melbourne with 13, let alone 11. Zero chance with two guys in the sin bin. Look, if the club seriously wants to ever win this competition, we've got to rein in the mistakes and lose the ill discipline.
Devlin.
I'm as tired as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
The platform.
Oh, superb!
Up the wires.
How good is that?
Is that fair? Is that fair criticism?
Yeah, look, I think so. I think, when you're giving up that lead 14-0 and a lot of people, like the whole experience of that Saturday night, you got a big crowd, the Super Rugby talk about the semi-finals have been bumped because the Warriors are in town. You just couldn't live up to the expectations. Same thing happened to Leeds over in England. Rob Burrow passed away last week. And Leeds go up to Hull. Hull haven't won. They won one game in 12, and they beat Leeds. You know what I mean? You just don't live up to the hype. And I think at the moment, it's look. And this isn't a crack at the Warriors. I think it's like read the room. Yeah. So you've got to read the room. Channel Tavita Harris, and even when Chance went there in the first week against Penrith, alongside Tamari Martin, opened the game back up for the Warriors. They went from a stagnant side that was so predictable, and anyone who was a commentator would go, just so predictable. And then you get to that game on Saturday night, you're 14 points up, and you think, man, we're going to kick on here, and then it becomes really predictable and easy to manage from Melbourne side, and they're top two, all right? And they go, well, hang on, if you're going to keep doing that to us, we're going to challenge you. And the momentum swing, and then all of a sudden Hughes starts to play football, Failoglu gets a bit of space, Big Nelson, it just all starts to go Melbourne's way. But the whole field is open for Melbourne. Do you know what I mean? Whereas it got closed off. And there's a text message here saying, should you have thought Chanel had come on and placed Sean after 10 minutes at half time? I actually think that Sean shouldn't have played. I think they should have gone with Tamari Martin up against the top of the table and played with Chanel again, because they'd earned that right over the previous couple of games to go out there and play in that position. And it's now a question for Andrew Webster. And the thing with Andrew Webster, he's a young coach, Marty. We were talking about this before the show. Young coach of the year. It's a lot of this. The same thing Ando went through this. The second year, they're asking him questions
syndrome, I suppose they call it, don't they?
They're asking him questions about whether or not there should be a second team. Like, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane and coach. Don't worry about whether a second team should be in the comp. The biggest decision for you is whether or not Tamari Martin and Chanel Harris-Tavita are actually going to open your team up and open the field up better than what Sean can do at the moment. And that's a coach's decision.
It's a huge call for him, though, and I don't know whether the most experienced coaches are going to find a decision like that easy. And you've been in this seat before. You're talking about your best players. You're talking about, if you're talking about Adam Fanua-Blake and dropping that guy, and he did do that, right? Now you're talking about Roger, and Roger comes back, and he'll probably come back into the centres. But if the centres were injured, what would you do with that guy? And this is why Andrew Webster gets paid, because he's the guy that has to make these calls.
Well, and the thing with it is it's about flow in it. They call it flow, all right. And before a coach, I was a player, and the best flow I had was the guy that's coming on to talk to us today, Richie Blackmore in the centres, and Tawa Nico at lock and me at 5'8". And it just worked.
The Kiwis, yeah.
You know
massive.
what I mean?
Great combo, man.
No, it just absolutely, the three of us just knew exactly instinctively what we were going, and we turned the best Wigan side over by 30 points. You know what I mean? It was just, everything sort of went together.
I suppose the argument, though, mate, is it an experiment if you do this? Because he was forced to make those changes because of injury. And, you've got to give Sean a chance to come back, don't you? Because he's been so dominant, and he's been, such a great player.
Well, Father Time waits for no one, Marty.
Well, he was absent without leave in the second half, and we know that it wasn't a great game for Sean. But everyone has a bad game as well.
I know. I love Sean to bits, and the way he came back last year and shoved it up a lot of people, including myself, was phenomenal.
And I want to see him given the chance to do it again. But you're playing with points, and you're playing with points table on a position on the points table, and all of that now, right?
You could be writing your season off for the sake of saying, well, he's a great player and he deserves it. And yes, look, I agree he deserves it, but what you're doing is you're narrowing, I guess, your team down. Like what the other two, and actually even when Chance went to 6 done, was they opened the whole team up. Everyone was running off. You weren't just going and scoring a try in one spot. You're getting the whole out of the football field in every aspect of the game.
Can I also ask you, so, when you've got 76% of possession, 90% of territory, tackle count 62-5, they haven't actually completed a set of 6 in the first 15 minutes. We've seen these rocket starts all the way through the season. From the very first game we saw it. What happens at that time? I mean, Melbourne stopped their mistakes, stopped giving the ball away, all of that. But when you're actually dominating a side like that, why aren't we able to go on and just strangle them from that point on?
See, I see it, and this is about flow. So I think what we're seeing with Chanel, Tavita Harris and Tamari Martin is that on both sides of the pitch they're invigorating. So everyone's moving with them and they're going. And you sort of need different leaders on different parts of the football field. So when they're together, they've got this thing going. You know what I mean? They've got the fullback going, their spine's working, everything's working in tandem. Unfortunately, when Sean gets onto the football field, he dominates it. He dominates it in every aspect. It's my ball. I'm getting it when I want it. I'm going to kick it when I need to kick it.
But he didn't in the last 10 minutes, did he? He just didn't hardly have the ball.
Well, when you have so much dominance like that and you're not performing and you start to sit back and go through the motions, well, you're actually leading the rest of the team's energy levels. And I'm talking about having what they had in the last 3 weeks, getting everyone's energy levels moving over that 80 minutes and getting those games done, to sitting back and going, when they got to 14 points, I was saying pull them off.
At that stage?
Put those two halves back on now and let them run home with a 14-point start. You know what I mean? Like, pull them off and say, well done. Like, cheer to the rafters.
Right.
Go and let the balloons and the ticket parade start. And Sean, I told you Sean could do it. And put the other two on that you knew could do it in the last 3 weeks to bring you home. And he didn't make that change. When he did, he still left them out. They brought Chanel Harris-Tavita on, and it was too late,
Finally, quickly, before we go to the break, and then Richie Blackmore is going to join us as a special guest. Again, 5050 on the text. If you want to ask any questions here to Richie, to Kempy, we've got the Rugby League Hour going for another half hour. Did it just show as well, this is a Melbourne side missing 2 really key players, does it just show as well that we're bloody close, but to get to that level, and we saw it against Brisbane last year and Penrith in the playoffs, I mean, this is just my theory, but I think we need 3 players. I think we need a Katoa, or we need an Ali Lauatiti or a Sonny Bill, a second rower who can smash through and offload the ball. We need some absolute express pace somewhere in the team, like an Adokar or a Hammer or somebody like that. And we need a centre like a Kevin Edo or maybe a Richie Blackmore there, somebody again, or a Crichton that can absolutely beast the opposition. I don't know. I just think to go to a championship level, maybe we're still lacking 2 or 3 players. Is that fair?
Well, I think, again, back in the early 2000s, we were part of this where we went away from the Aussie model and we built homegrown. And I think until we actually get back to that model, and we've got that with the junior team starting now, where we're building homegrown. Yeah, because
Ania Corday to me is a guy that is potentially one of those guys, right?
So left and came back. So
Katoa is one of those guys.
Left and probably come back. Roger Tuivasa left, came back. Sean Johnson left, come back. That's not building your legacy. That's like you've got this thing that you know you're nearly there, but you keep losing them and they're coming back. Now, Penrith won 3 premierships and then lost players.
Yep.
So Curacao, they lose after he's won them a premiership. Kikau, after they've won a premiership. Crichton, he's won 3 premierships. Luai possibly wins 4 You know what I mean? That's like building your legacy and making sure that if they come in, they're coming to stay. And I agree with you. I think, we're still a couple of players away, but I think more importantly is we've got to grow homegrown talent and trust that we've got them here so we don't lose them.
3:29 it is. Let's take a break. Richie Blackmore going to join us. We'll still go head-to-head. Tony will pick his top 5, and it's a bit of a twist on the top 5. These are how they're going to finish at the end of the season. Courtesy of MicroBio Solutions. This is the Rugby League Hour. You're on the platform.
He's a leech.
224 first-class games, Castleford over 100 for them. He played for the Auckland Warriors then, 95-96, came back in 01 for the New Zealand Warriors, and 25 very proud tests for the Kiwis. Good God, I love this man as a player. Richie Blackmore, Tony Kemp's with me. My name's Martin Devlin. Welcome to the show, mate.
Martin, Tony, hey, happy to be here, mate. So that was a lovely little spin-off there, but happy to be here.
Yeah, good to hear your voice, man. I know you're at Waiheke drinking some wine over there at the moment with lovely Fliss, mate. Just Marty wants to hear about that try, mate. Like when you got into that 91 Kiwi team and you're opposite Dale Shearer there. Just take us through it when that ball popped up to you and you had him in front of you. What were you thinking?
What did you want to hear the part where we in the first half I did absolutely nothing and Gilt was falling all over me at half time, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to let this whole game slip past me, or do I need to? I'm going to have to get out there and do something, at least touch the ball for goodness sake. Geez, look, it was just a moment, madness, to be fair, because it was hard to describe as it unfolded, but obviously the opportunity to take Shearer on the outside, Boddicker gave it to me, dropped me off the inside. I thought I'd have a go at it and see if it caught him in a surprise situation, which it seemed it did, but then I saw Mal Meninga coming across and I was thinking, okay, I've really got to put the wheels on, and I was never a winger. I was not born a winger. No. I found myself in that position. It's one of those cases, you take the position. If they're going to give it to you, well, anywhere will do. And so I jumped on it, and then at that very, I think it was Hoff. Yeah, Paul Hoff.
Yeah, was that the big tall man? Yeah.
Big tall man, gangly fella. I tried to give him the footwork. I almost fell over at the same rate. But anyway, Jared McCracken gave us barked at me, and I managed to. I don't know how I managed to be
what
fair.
A ball.
I let history, let the footy gods explain that. But it ended up a great try for us to get us back in the game.
Magnificent win it was. I was just saying to Kempy, though, I mean, we got dicked in the second test, 44-0. That was a shame. But that was just... Richie, you came from virtually nowhere, mate. You were playing rugby union, and then how did you get into the Otahuhu Leopards and start playing league?
Yeah, don't remind me. One of the articles going into that week, it came from Tony Kemp, your little sidekick there, is Richie Who, as they called it when they were giving him the lineup in this interview over in Aussie. Who's in our team?
Mate, that's one of your teammates is saying Richie Who.
That's kind of how obscure it was. Obviously, playing local footy, I was the only, I'll call it non-professional, certainly not playing in a professional club locally, that was in that test side. She was a tricky little battle with Sam Parnapa. Managed to get the selection to go to play Aussie, and that all went down. But it's a crazy situation back then, but obviously that never happened today.
The most magnificent thing about it is that try, that fend, that performance. I mean, that absolutely propelled your career from there, though, didn't it?
Well, that was why I had to nurse hide an injury, dislocated my shoulder about 3 weeks before then. I did not want anyone to know because I could see that, I could sense that was my window out of this place and playing some professional footy. So I had to just grit the teeth. Something people don't really understand, and managed to just through the sheer what do we call it?
I tell you what it is. It's taking an opportunity. That's what I love about it. Like, I mean, you're there, you seize the day is what you did.
Yeah, and I had about 3 weeks of nursing a shoulder to eventually, fortunately, come 2 days before that test. It kind of felt right, and I was sort of like, wow, that's amazing. The footy gods have shone down on me. I'm going to be okay. But for the first half, as I mentioned, no, I was actually crap. And then, fortunately, we turned the tide in the second.
That's you unleashed, mate. Richie Blackmore, the legend, was made that night. Mate, the other one, and no one probably knows this, but in '95 we played Tonga up in, this is when Tonga started to get themselves together, and Dwayne Mann and Georgie Mann were in that side along with young Owen Gutenbill. Yeah. And we're down, mate. We're down by 10.
This is at the World Cup.
And no one knows it except the players in the Kiwi team. Richie Blackmore put on a show. Take us through that part too, Richie.
If you think getting yourself right from a dislocated shoulder in 3 weeks, I tell you what, you've got 10 minutes to save your soul from losing to Tonga in a World Cup semi-final. Oh my gosh! I remember standing there one stage there, and they just scored another try to go 10 up on us, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, what are we going to? We're not going to be able to go back to New Zealand.
The ball.
This is so bad. This is so real. 10 minutes, we managed to turn that around, and Well, I don't think I passed it to anybody. I just decided, no, just give it to me. I'm just going to have to do this on my own.
It's like backyard footy,
get out
mate.
of the way, Kempy. I think I might have thrown Kempy out of the way. Just get out. Just give it to me.
So, look, and if people don't remember, go back and have that 95 final. We were a Matthew Ridge left-footed field goal away from making the final, and it was just, magnificent. You've been watching the Warriors at all. What are your thoughts, mate?
What are your thoughts? Yeah, I mean, look, I thought I felt good watching those, sitting down, getting ready to watch them on Saturday night. I thought, okay, they're looking. There's a good feel about them, and I think they came out of the blocks with their feeling. I suppose the explanation is how did they go from 40 and up to losing 34-20 or whatever it was, but. My one concern that they had going into that game, and it's probably why I don't really buy into Webby's fact that we shouldn't have another team in New Zealand, I just don't agree with it, is that there's so much pressure on those boys to have to be successful as a one-team country, that when you look at their first 20 minutes, they just look like they spent a lot of energy to prove themselves, and we've got to get away from that requirement to justify why we're there. And as a result, it looked like they hit the wall after 20, and sure enough, before we knew it, we were chasing our tail, and we kind of had run out of ideas. We did our best in little flashes, but that first 20 minutes really did worry me about how much. In fact, it reminded me of back in the days with Kempy. You'll remember this. As Kiwis, you had every belief that you could beat them. There's no doubt about it. I'm not questioning that. But there was a... it's kind of like, when a player first makes their debut for the Warriors or professional organisation, and they go over, they try too hard, and you kind of sort of feel for them, and you think, okay, once they become comfortable, they'll be okay. Well, it was kind of like that back in years gone by when Kiwis were playing the Australians. Geez, we'd be out of the blocks. I tell you, we were all over them like a rash. But then, you burnt your motor was hurting. All of a sudden, fatigue starts to kick in, and lactic acids kick in, and then we don't know where we are. We start to drop off tackles. We start to give away penalties, and before you know it, the weight of possession is in the end. The Melbourne Storm 120,
great analysis,
34-20.
Yeah.
What are you doing these days with yourself, mate?
Well, we're over here at Waiheke Island, not just because we like the place, but because Bailey's are shouting us for the success that we've had in the last financial year. So,
not bad, eh? Cock-a-doodle-doo, mate. Oh, brilliant. Awesome.
Hey, check. And the beauty about these wineries over here, they make gin, vodka, and all. They
do, mate. Now. They do. Yeah, I tell you what, it's a lovely spot. Right, Richie, thank you so much for joining us, mate. Appreciate you. And just as a Kiwi fan, that is one of the greatest memories you gave us. That 1991 effort against Australia, bro. It's so cool.
That's fantastic, man. Thank you for that. Awesome, guys.
Lovely talking to you, Richie Blackmore with us. We'll take a little break here. Come back, go head to head, and we still got the top 5 to go, and also the Effluix Cleanup Award.
Head to head.
Once again, we don't have a huge amount of time, so I'm just going to go through the topics, mate, and you're going to tell me. The Roosters, this is their last 7 games. 1 against Brisbane, 1 against the Warriors, lost to Sharks, beat Canberra, lost to North Queensland, had a bye, beat the Eels. They have won 8, they have lost 6, they are sitting there 5th on the table. Convince me again, like you do every week, that this is a top 4 side and they can win it.
I think that if they do get through to the top 4, they're definitely a side that can win. I think Tedesco being left out of the New South Wales side is going to spark them into some really good form in the back end of the year. And they've got talent across the board. Tupou on the weekend was outstanding. Look at Joey Manu, the way that he's playing. You look at Connor Watson, now gets a New South Wales bench spot. He's going to go to another level. And they're probably going to kick out Brendan Smith. He's going to head up at another club next year. But when he gets back on the football field, Marty, he's going to tear it apart as well.
Saturday, 7:30. Look at that for a matchup. Roosters versus Bulldogs.
What a scrap.
What a scrap. You've also got, Rabbitohs versus Manly. So let's talk about Manly. These are their last 7. Lost to the Raiders, lost to the Dolphins, lost to Brisbane, beat the Storm, had a bye, lost to Penrith, and then beat St. George yesterday. So that's 2-6, Tony, in the last... What, is that a team that's making the top 8?
I think they can make the top 8. Still no Tommy Turbo in the side, and Daly Cherry Evans has defined the gods with his age at 35, doing the things that he's doing. That game on the weekend from Daly Cherry Evans, I thought was absolutely outstanding, picking teams apart and just keeping his side in there. Remember, mate, this is a 35-year-old keeping your team's nose in front. And this is the difference between what our mate there who's a Brisbane supporter is talking about Reynolds. They are such a young side that they need someone like Reynolds in there to keep. They're the glue. And Daly Cherry Evans is that for Manly.
Okay, well, substitute the name Cherry Evans for Johnson and tell us then why Sean Johnson should be the number 7 for the Warriors.
Because he's not playing like a Daly Cherry Evans, and he's not playing, like Reynolds was when he was leading Brisbane around. He was last year, but this year he's not. You know what I mean? And the thing with those two guys is that they get the teams firing across the board. And I'm not saying that Sean hasn't done that for us in the past, but he's become really predictable, and sits out of the for too long and gets into that kick, and it becomes such a predictable...
What say he gets his hands on the ball more and does more? Does that convince you then?
Yeah, but he won't. I'm sorry, Marty.
Okay, well, tell us then, out of the 4, you've got Sean, you've got Chanel, you've got Chance, and you've got Tamati. Pick our 6 and 7 and stick and pick.
Tamari Martin at 7, yeah, and Chanel Harris-Tavita at 6. And I think and you put Chance back there at fullback and you get that spine going.
Well, where does Roger go then?
Roger goes on the centres this week, isn't he?
He has to.
No, well, I think he'll play on the wing. I think they'll throw, they're going to throw him on the wing anyway. So I think with one of the wingers down who's going to be put out, it's Dallin, who's going to get some time out.
Yeah,
Roger will go straight back on the wing. You're clutching at straws here with the Warriors, mate.
Why do we like Craig Bellamy? Why do we love the fact that he loses it?
What, apart from passion?
Yeah, well, it's the emotion. People love it. The steam coming out the ears, the bellyache thing. They all love it. People love it when he goes off. Why is that?
You know the beauty about that is that he had the best player in the world, the most, who I think the actual immortal, who hasn't been named yet, in Cam Smith, sitting on the side of his seat all those years that he was in Melbourne waiting for bellyache to give him a rack up. Now, mate, can you imagine that? You've got an immortal still sitting there waiting that he hopefully doesn't come in and tune me up. That says why Bellyache's so good.
See, Sir Alex Ferguson from Man United had this thing, people, where he said, and it's a great quote, he said, anger is good. And most people hate anger, and we all hate it because it's normally manifested in the wrong way. He said, as long as it's channeled in the right way and you're not attacking people that don't deserve it. But one of the things he used to do with Wayne Rooney, it didn't matter how Rooney was playing, he'd come to the changing room at halftime and he'd just tear strips off him to get him so wild and fired up that he'd go out there and play with that. So that's kind of clever in that way. But I just look at Bellamy and I just look at him. We love raw emotion. We love seeing people actually, without being scripted, show who they are.
And there's nothing like the now in there.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's your whole point. Like address it right now.
And get it out of the way.
And that's what Bellyache does. He addresses it and gives you an opportunity to say, well, I'm going to go and fix it. He doesn't wait till Monday on a review and then say, mate, pull your finger. Like, mate, that was 3 days ago. I've done, heaps of other stuff since then. He deals with it right then. I think that's what the difference is.
The Titans are now bottom of the table, okay? Does that mean that they are the worst team? Because for 9 weeks in a row, when the Tigers were losing, they were the worst team. But now that they've beaten the Titans, are the Titans the worst team?
What about Desi Hasler's face after the game? Did you see
he's another one to see. Him, Ricky Stewart and Craig Bellamy, my 3 favourite coaches.
Here's a guy who's won a premiership.
Yeah.
Now sitting down the bottom of the wooden spoon, getting beaten by the worst team in the competition in the Tigers at Leichhardt, which he'd hate because he'd played 1,000 games here himself, and hoping that he doesn't end up with a wooden spoon. Mate, he's in a fight. He's in a fight with the Tigers for that wooden spoon. I don't think South will be fighting for it.
Final one of these. Here are the Warriors fixtures, people, and we'll just get rid of Origin, shall we? Away the Titans, home the Broncos, away the Dogs, bye, and then the Raiders. And so between the Dogs and the Raiders, obviously, that's when Origin 3 is. So let's just look at Titans, Broncos, Dogs, Raiders. How many of those are going to be won and how many have
4.
to be won? 4. I'd like to think 4. Well, we got to get on a roll, mate.
Well, that's what I thought. I'm not worried about see, that's what I said to you at the beginning when I looked at the schedule on the run home. It ain't scary, is it?
Well, I think we can beat the Broncos without Adam Reynolds. Hell yes.
I'll tell you what's scary is whether or not Andrew Webster makes the right call around the team that actually gets the team moving. And I think that decision is going to determine whether or not they're 4 wins or 4 losses.
So your biggest thing from the Warriors from this weekend is forget the fact we're up 14-0 and we got beaten 38-10 and shipped all those points. It's trying to figure out exactly who is going to be the 6 and 7 from here. And do you leave those guys here? What say he picks them and one of them has a bad game? Do you just say, just stick with these 2 guys?
Look, he was making a lot of sense, Richie. I love chatting to him. He's such a football head, you know what I mean? Loves analysing stuff. But he's right, you know, like when you first asked me what's going on with the Warriors at the beginning of the year, I said, well, they look like a bunch of old men running around in old cars, you know, like they just get tired. And they do look like that. And unfortunately, with that mix, it's just not right. He's got to change the mix, which he was shown for the last 4 weeks with those boys when he had the bye. Shit, I've got a different team. You know?
See, this is the problem as well, is that we all interpret it that it's a slight on someone. It doesn't have to be a slight. It's professional football. It's a workplace, isn't it?
Well, it's what a coach does. A beautiful thing of hindsight, isn't it?
Every day, mate. Every day.
At 14-0, you pull him off. If you had Tom Brady for 14 minutes and he put you up 24 points and you knew his legs were going to run out, wouldn't you then go and put Malone on?
Well, you probably would for a little bit.
Wouldn't you put
Mahomes,
Paddy on? You know what I mean? Like that thinking, like, are we capable of that thinking, or are we stuck with, you know, it's like having Stacey Jones and you're never going to drop him. Mate, Father Time waits for no one. We all go through it. There comes a time when a coach will say to you, it hurts, mate. I can tell you that it hurts. And he says, mate, I'm not going with you today. I'm actually going to go with him. And you as the player go, but I'm better than him. And the coach goes, but I'm making that decision for the team. You know what I mean? And you can take it the wrong way. I've taken it the wrong way sometimes. And you can take the right one and gone, yeah, no, you're dead right. I'm done. You know? And I think he needs to make that type of call.
Comes a time when it's time.
The Influix Cleanup Award.
All right. The gook into the gunk, mate. The gunk into the gold. What is it?
I'm going to give you a guess. Have a guess.
Well, I'd say it'd be the Melbourne Storm.
No. I'd say it'd be the Hammer.
Oh, wow, okay. All right.
Well, mate.
Well, that single incident, that single try.
What do you mean, that single try? The try of the year. Better than Coates
against the Warriors?
100%.
Well, that was a game winner.
100 metre. Well, that's always that. In the context, he took it out and he got them back into the game and they ended up winning it. But to take it, you know how hard it is to score a 100 metre try in the NRL these days? Individually?
Impossible.
And, man, it's... You know where he went first? He went through the middle of the park.
Yeah, he didn't go,
I'm going to run around that winger because I'm beating for speed. He went, I'm going to beat 3 or 4 defenders first, and then I'm going to open up and go for it, mate. I haven't seen a try like I said to you when we were talking, since Martin Afai was playing.
I mean, good God, he was beautiful to watch, wasn't he? No one ever got a hand on the guy.
I was playing a great guy too, Marty.
Is he?
He's a great guy. But I used to always think when I'm chasing him, because I was a bit of an angry fellow back, and then I'm going, I don't care if you get tackled, I'm coming in late. You know what I mean? Because you were too fast and I can't catch you anyway.
Influix Award goes to the Hammer.
And they've got an overlap here.
TK's Top 5.
And again, this is where they're going to finish in the points table. Top 5 at the moment looking Storm, Panthers, Sharks, Dolphins, Roosters on a points differential. Take 5.
Number 5.
I'm going to put the Dolphins in at 5.
So they snip out of the top 4 then.
Oh yeah, look, I think they're the real deal. I think that fifth spot's going to be, fourth spot's going to be heavily contested, and I think there's probably, for me, 4 teams that can make that fourth spot. I think the Dolphins out of those 4 teams probably won't get it.
Dolphins in at 5.
Number 4.
At the moment, I'm going the Roosters.
8 and 6, you're going the Roosters. I mean, this match against the Dogs this weekend is just, I know there's only 5 games in the round, but when you're looking at Souths playing Manly, given the form of both sides, when you're looking at the Dogs coming off a bye playing the Roosters and all the history of that game as well.
Eastern Beach is up against the Bankstown Bulldogs.
Yeah, they've been fighting each other on the surf break for how many years now? About 150, haven't they?
I know. It honestly, it's going to be a massive scrap, and I'm a little bit disappointed that Crichton's has to sit out this one. But yeah, look, I just think the Roosters at the moment. I think class is going to see the Roosters get into that 4.
3.
Well, I got to hang with the top 3, Marty. I got to hang with the Sharks. Even though Nico Hines.
See, I call him Nico when he plays for the Blues for Origin, because it's not Nico turns up, it's the other guy. Nico turns up, mate, and he's not half the guy, is he?
Well, Nico resides in the eastern side of the border, out of there in Coogee, so he's got the long locks and all sorts. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, only because I don't want to see Nico go into a shell.
Okay.
Number 2.
Well, it's got to be
and
the Panthers, doesn't it? You have to be.
No. I'm going the Storm.
Storm finished second.
From what I've seen, I think the Storm finished second. I don't think they finished top.
They're going to get their two of their best players back.
Yeah, but
how about much better? They're going to be with Munster.
I would trade those two players for the Panthers' one player.
Okay, well, that's a fair call.
I think the Panthers...
Number one.
I think the Panthers have shown enough to end up in the number one spot, playing the way that they have done, winning games the way that they have been, without their number one talent in Nathan Cleary. I think when Nathan Cleary comes back, they step up again. And I hate to say it, as we get towards the end of the year, a four-peat.
The man just set up the try.
That was the Rugby League Hour, brought to you by MicroBio Solutions Limited, solving environmental issues using green technologies. Visit microbio.co.nz.
It's